Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. We just asked in the chat where you're all dialing in from. We have everything. We have good evening, good afternoon, good morning, very early good
Very
morning. I
early
saw
morning.
somebody from California, so
Yeah.
we have
I
the
don't, Marie,
full
you and I are going to have to be extra entertaining for
extra
someone to get up
chapter.
for five at
Exactly.
5 a.m. to join us. Good Lord.
Welcome,
Impressive.
welcome. Well, welcome to our fourth McKinsey Unpacked episode. For those of you who have
Fourth.
joined for, yeah, number four already,
Number
counting
four.
up.
Amazing. Time flies. Time flies.
Yeah, for those of you who have not joined before, I'm Marie.
And I'm Blair.
And together we have the pleasure to co-lead our global talent attraction function at McKinsey. And with this monthly Unpacked session, we really try to give you an inside view behind the scenes at McKinsey, and hopefully in a slightly different format that busts some of the myths, answers some of the questions that you have, and helps you on your journey and provide some interesting facts. Given that our consultants do like to travel to work side by side with our clients, we thought it was very fitting for this series to be called Unpacked. So that's a little extra nudge to our profession. And we really want to unpack in this episode what working at McKinsey is really like. We will share the link to previous recordings after this session. And then there's also a website where you can listen to them all and you can stay up to date about upcoming sessions that we have planned.
I love it. This is a really fun session. We have a great guest for you today. We always try and bring a guest star in to help us unpack a topic. So we'll introduce her in a moment. But just to give you a sense of what to expect over the next 40-ish minutes or so, we have three sections. If you don't know that about McKinsey, you will quickly learn everything comes in threes. We only speak in threes. It's weird, and yet it's really true. But we have three sections to today's discussion. The first is what's the map for today, which is we share a little bit about what's on our mind, tee up the topic that we're going to discuss. The second is the unpacked session, the real meat of that, where, as Marie said, we really get underneath a particular topic and hope that you will walk away having a different understanding maybe of when you joined us initially about how we think about certain things. And as Marie said, what it's really like to work here. And then the third session, part of the webinar is snack for the road, because that's something else that McKinsey's really good at. We have a lot of snacks and everybody needs a little food when you go on a trip. And so that is our best advice and tips to leave you with, something that may help you in your own personal or professional path, whether or not it is with McKinsey. So that's today. Marie, let's get started with today's map. What's on your mind, my friend?
Yes, so today we want to shine a light on our feedback and apprenticeship culture at
Ooh,
McKinsey.
scary topic.
And
Okay.
it's
Okay.
definitely timely because we just kicked off our annual evaluation process for our team. So Blair and I have been neck deep in feedback conversations and looking at the impact of our colleagues in the last 12 months, which is always extremely energizing and exciting to reflect a bit what people have been doing in the last 12 months and to think ahead how we can help them further on their development plan. So this is definitely a topic top of mind at the moment. It's always taking a lot of time gathering the feedback, writing up the summary about people's strengths, coming up with the suggestions as they move forward. But it's so energizing and so rewarding and so important. And I have been with McKinsey a very long time, for 21 years. And one of the reasons I always say why I've stayed for all these years, it's because of the continuous growth and learning I have experienced, which came really through a large part through feedback and apprenticeship that I've received along the way. But Blair, what is your experience over the years with this topic?
Oh, so many moments of feedback over the years. But I think one thing that stands out for me is from my very first interview with McKinsey, I learned what feedback was. I remember giving an answer and it was pretty general, and I think I'd practiced it a bit, but it didn't kind of say much. And I remember my interviewer stopping me and saying, you know what, that doesn't tell me very much about you. Let's try that again. And my advice to you as you go through the rest of your interviews is be specific, share real examples of what makes you special. And I remember thinking, wow, that is, first of all, it made me feel like I completely bombed my interview. Turns out I hadn't before, in fact, but it was so interesting that it really was a gift to help me get better, not just in that interview, but in my future ones as well. So I will never forget that. 100 years ago, it was when my first experience with feedback, and it's been, like you, Marie, a huge part of my McKinsey experience. Well, let's bring in our guest star, because this is a dear friend of ours who has a lot of experience over her nearly 20-year career at McKinsey with feedback in a bunch of different forums. So we want to introduce to you Nora Gardner. Hello, Nora. Nora is a senior partner. There's Nora. Hi, Nora.
Hi, good
Hello.
morning.
Hello,
Well,
good
good morning where I
morning.
am. Hello, hello.
I know, exactly. Evening, really early morning, middle of the night. We are so happy to have Nora with us today, guys. Nora is a senior partner in our Washington, D.C. office. She works very closely with Marie and me in helping to shape our talent attraction strategies globally. So we're very lucky. And she's also a cherished mentor to both of us. Additionally, Nora has led our review processes in North America, both for our lower tenured colleagues, so entry-level consultants, as well as how we review our partners. Yes, we review our partners. Everybody gets feedback at all levels at
Never
McKinsey.
stops.
Right, it never stops. And so Nora is going to help us really unpack and get underneath this concept of feedback, which seems to have a little bit of an aura to it and what we really think about apprenticeship. So Nora, welcome.
Thank you. It's
Welcome,
wonderful to be
Nora.
here.
Yes, we're
Wonderful to
so
be here.
excited. And we talk a lot about accelerated growth that people experience here once they join McKinsey. That is truly quite unparalleled. I mean, the learning and the growth and the development that you can get here is really as fast as you can dream about. But the foundation of that all is feedback and apprenticeship. But before we talk more about the details, maybe we start by defining those two things because they are fundamentally different, but they also, of course, go together. So what do they mean to McKinsey and what do they mean to you, Nora?
Well, so, thank you so much. It's a fantastic topic. And some of what I'd encourage everyone to do is actually, shift your mindset a little bit about feedback and apprenticeship and the intention behind it and the result of it. So, it's something that we'll talk about this more. It's something that we consider a gift. It's actually offered, feedback is offered with an intent to help and improve the person who it's given to. So it's given with a real positive intent. It's also important to think about wanting to receive feedback. And
Yes.
I also think of this as expecting and almost demanding the feedback. If you're not getting, some two-way information about how you're working together in a team or with others, then everyone's really missing out. So, feedback is that real, it's a way to hold up the mirror for one another and get a sense for how things are going with an intent to improve each individual, but then also to improve what you're collectively doing together. And if you start doing that early and often over the course of many years in a career, you really see incredible and fast professional growth.
I
So
love
that's
that,
feedback.
Nora. Building that muscle early. I think that's such an important point, and it's not easy to do. It's not easy.
No.
Maybe you could share a story of maybe early in your career. Do you even get feedback now as a super senior leader? Does that still happen?
Yes, of course. I can think of so many useful pieces of feedback, some that are even funny. I'll share a few early pieces of feedback that I got. Another thing to think about with feedback is it is often the flip side of your strengths. So we all have natural skills, natural strengths. And when those are overplayed, they are not always as helpful as they can be. I came to McKinsey with a sort of non-traditional background. I was a biochemist, so I'd spent a lot of time in a lab, with my test tubes, and not a lot of time in a team room or a business environment. And I got feedback early on that I needed to speak up more. And I kind of thought, gosh, well, why would I want to speak up? I'm not confident in what I have to say, and I don't want to take up the airtime. I'm just here to learn. I'm new. And then I had a team member explain it to me as, Nora, we can tell on your face that you're thinking about what's happening. You've got a lot to say. And whenever we do ask you what you have to say, we love what's coming out. How dare you keep that inside. You're not being a good team
I
member
love that.
if you're not speaking
I
up.
love that.
And it completely reframed how I thought about my obligation to share, to ask a question, to participate, not just in here, but for the benefit of the whole group. And so that really was an unlock for
Love
me
that.
about an obligation to share and be a part of the team. I'll also share one funny one early on, which I think illustrates this concept of feedback as a gift, because it is a gift, and therefore it's something that's given with intent and helpful, or can be helpful. They are also, the other thing with feedback on a gift is you can take that gift and put it to the side if you want. And you can open it later, you can re-gift it, you can, you don't. So I had a very funny piece of feedback given me from, this is a senior partner on my team, a male partner who was probably, more than a foot taller than me. We were working with a client in town, and we were always walking to that client. He would outpace me and get there quick, and I was like in my heels trying hard to get there. Anyway, he gave me feedback once that I was too short. And I thought, this is crazy, bias alert. Oh my gosh, come on, what does this have to do with anything? And for the most part, I put that to the side. But I have to say, I thought about it, and I thought, what does that mean? Well, and there were some lessons for me there about my presence and physical presence, and also, thinking about when I need to get attention, or when I'm facilitating, or when I'm presenting. I lift my chair up a little. I may stand up when I'm presenting. And that actually helps my message get across. So there was a little nugget in there.
A little nugget that you
that wasn't best practice giving of feedback.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
But there was a lesson.
Yeah, I never, well, you don't know the people on Zoom. I'm very tall. I'm 6'2", which is 188. So
Yeah.
I wonder what I would have done if they would have told me.
Yeah, you're too tall. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. That's right. And I'm the opposite. I'm more in Nora's camp. So I'm now realizing I need to sit up a little bit straighter on the Zoom. So thanks. I'll take that little bit of a gift.
I mean, all kidding aside, we talked about feedback is a gift, but it's not, and it's always done with the intent to help somebody grow, but it's not always easy.
No.
Both to receive it, but then also to give it, because you want to do it in a way that is meaningful and thoughtful and helps somebody and doesn't shut them down, doesn't hurt them, but it really wants to arrive in a way that helps people grow. So how do you think about that tough love that is sometimes necessary to really help somebody grow and shine?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's important to really understand the distinction between being nice and then being kind and caring. And, being nice is maybe not hurting people's feelings, telling them what they want, what you think they want to hear. You're also concerned about how they view you and the, relationship you have. But very, very often, the most caring and kindest thing you can do is to deliver a tough message with care, and to do that actually in a timely manner, so that the
still fresh
person has a chance to really improve.
So important.
And one thing that we do, because we aren't all naturals at this. I mean, if you haven't had a lot of experience giving and receiving feedback in your professional life, I can tell you in your personal life, this is not always, we're not always masters at this. So one thing we do very early on is we give training.
In our onboarding, actually.
Yes.
The second week at McKinsey, you learn how to give feedback properly.
Exactly. And we give training on how to give feedback, and also training on how to receive feedback.
Absolutely.
Because how this is done is important, and it changes the game as to whether it's received with the intent that it's intended. So, I mean, and then the other thing is to it's actually important to kind of lower the bar on it and to increase the frequency. So of
Yes.
course, you
Just
talked
try
about
it.
annual reviews. We're
Yep.
doing annual reviews, and that's a big feedback moment, right? In fact, for many of our colleagues, we get formal reviews twice a year. So that's a big moment where you're getting an aggregated feedback. But if we're doing this right, we're getting micro feedback all the time. So we also, we do project-based work. At the end of each project, you do a bit of a review of feedback in both directions. We usually try to do that even weekly also, because just the more, it's like anything, the more you do it, you kind of lower the bar on how scary it is, because it's just what we do, and then you're able to adjust more quickly. So there's a lot of things that we do to just build it into our rhythms, such that while I know it probably feels scary and feels like a big deal, it's just what we do,
Yep. I love
and
that, Nora. We talk about the rituals we have in our
yes.
teams, and those are important because I love how you laid that out, that sort of sets the rhythm. And if regular feedback is something that everybody is both giving and receiving as a natural part of working together, you're absolutely right. It makes it goes from some big scary thing that you have to sit on and think about. So I love your timeliness point too,
Yeah.
that is also a gift to someone, is do it in the moment. It's fresh in their mind. They can receive it. They can hear it. And you can also give them the grace to go digest it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And come back. Because I think that's also really important too, is there are moments that, particularly if you get some feedback that is a little harder to hear, you might say, you know what, I just need to take a minute and think through that. And to your point, Nora, open the box, see what's in the gift, what resonates with you, what you have questions about, and then give people time to come back. So I think sometimes that second conversation can be the real unlock, when people have had a chance to sort of get over both the nervousness of giving it and then the sort of moment of receiving it, where you think, ooh, this is something I really need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And it's not just feedback one-on-one, right? We have also, for example, feedback
Yep.
as part of how our teams work together, to
Yeah.
sit on a regular basis to discuss, is this working well for us? Are there any changes we want to make to how we are coming together as a team that would, make our collective lives better? Equally, we have regular feedback sessions with our clients to understand better, are we having the impact that they were hoping we would have? Are we building their team's capabilities as we had agreed to do it? So you will find feedback in many different areas
Yes.
when you're at McKinsey.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we mentioned apprenticeship as being the sort of sister to feedback. Nora, would love to get your take on, what do you think apprenticeship means, and how has it felt to you, and how has it been a part of your growth and your journey at McKinsey?
Yeah. I mean, apprenticeship is so, so important. I like to think of it as it's a companion to feedback. It's a companion to training. It's the learning by showing, learning by doing. So it's it's why it's so important for us to work together, work side by side, work in teams, and see each other in action. And when you couple, doing that with an intention around learning, then, that's where you get kind of the magic out of apprenticeship. It's, some of the things I've also heard it described as making more visible the invisible, right? So it
I
gives
love
you the
that.
chance, if you're working with a leader you really admire, gives you the chance afterwards to say, hey, how did you handle that tough moment in that meeting? I saw you really slow down and, change the conversation and the perspective on a conversation. It was really effective. Why did you do that? What made you think to do that? How can I do that? Right. So it just gives permission to make more transparent some of those things. It's also, another thing that has surprised me, and probably another reason I am still at McKinsey, is how much you learn from people who are really different than you are.
Yes.
Mm.
And so I have probably appreciated even more the apprenticeship I've received from individuals who have really different backgrounds, really different strengths profiles, maybe work in a different way, because that allows you to expand the ways that you can lead, to expand your skill set, again, in both directions. So apprenticeship is a huge part of how we learn.
It's sort
And
of
are there any,
caring in action, right? Yeah.
Yes.
totally. Are there any moments that stuck with you in particular when you think back on your career around apprenticeship?
Well, one of my most treasured apprenticeship relationships was with a senior partner who was very different than me. As I said, I kind of came to consulting with a scientific background, kind of an analytic background, and I've been on a learning journey around a few things. One, the sort of human side of what we do and relationship building, but also as you get more senior in your career, you start to do, not just delivery of projects, but also longer term relationships and client development. And that was something that felt really foreign to me, and I wasn't sure I would enjoy. So I paired up with a particular senior partner on entrepreneurship and client development. And honestly, I kind of went into it with my own biases actually, and learned so much from him, and learned to appreciate and love that side of what we do. So it was just full of surprises, and he was so wonderful. We would set up monthly entrepreneurship apprenticeship sessions. And it's just like a coach or a personal trainer would be. He'd say, okay, Nora, what's the goal for this month? How are you doing? And he kept me, and then he'd tell me how he would do it, how to think about it. And it was just fantastic. It was like I said, having your own personal coach, and I valued it so much.
I love that. I love this idea of being open to knowing that you can learn something from someone who is very different than you are, right? That we all humans fall prey to the sort of selection bias a lot, right? Or confirmation bias, where we only want to be around people that are like us and do things like we do. But I think that's such a powerful reminder, Nora, that when you grow the most is when you open yourself up to learning from someone who has completely different gifts than you do. And that can help you build, entirely new capabilities that you didn't know sort of you had in you. So I love that. We mentioned reviews earlier. I know it's top of mind for all of us right now, but Nora, that is something we love in this series. We spend time myth busting a lot because we find that there are things that people have perceptions, or I would say misperceptions, about how things work at McKinsey, and we love getting underneath that. Our up or out culture is something that I think gets a lot of sort of airtime outside the firm, but I'm not sure people really understand what that means and why that is actually, we think, a really positive thing for our growth. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, with your perch into reviews at the very top of the pyramid and the entry level folks, what do we mean by up or out, and what has that meant for you?
Yeah. Up or out is, I felt the same way. I didn't quite understand it, and it certainly did not sound like a good thing.
Right, exactly.
Coming in, right? And in some ways, there of course there is truth to that phrase. In some ways, I came to understand, and I now understand that it's there's some nuance, and it's really worth talking about. So, we do have, for many of our roles, a sort of up or out. And what that means is just an expectation of skill growth over time. And so that you have, windows where you're expected to reach certain levels of development. And when that's not happening or not going well, then it's usually a mutual decision that this isn't really work. It's not the right place. It's not really the right thing, and or, continuing your development elsewhere, makes sense. What's I think really the case about Up or Out is, as I mentioned, it is almost always mutual at that point. If you're not loving the challenge, if you're not loving the feedback culture and loving that development and seeing results and growth in yourself and in the ability to really help your clients, then that it probably isn't a great fit. The other thing about Up or Out is it sounds quite severe, but it's like there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of timing and grace around that, because these are portfolios of projects. We have certain opportunities at certain times. People develop their skills, in nonlinear ways, and it takes some time. Sometimes you'll have a chance to really work on the analytic side of a toolkit, and then you'll need or want opportunities to help you work on those client relationships. And so, it can take a bit of time, but the point is to partner on that together, again, to know what you're trying to learn and what you're trying to develop, and then seek out opportunities to push yourself out of your comfort zone.
And I think the
and
underlying,
master it.
Yeah.
what it comes back to is that there is an idea that you continuously grow and develop. And like you said,
Yes.
that might come in different forms, but fundamentally that's great. So if you, like you said, Nora, if you love the challenge, if you love to grow, if you love to, develop and advance yourself, this is an amazing place, because there's even an expectation that you can't stand still in your
right.
role for, you can't be a project leader for 20 years. That's just not how we work as a firm. There is that expectation, but also that ability and opportunity to continue to grow and develop, which
Exactly.
personally I think is a great plus to have a fulfilling career.
Well, and the
Absolutely.
idea that it's a two-way discussion, right? Because
Absolutely.
I agree. I think we've all had moments in our careers where we did feel like we were a little stuck or a little stagnating. And that is when you need to really sort of make the choice. Does this mean I need to do something else, or does it mean I need to change my approach within my role right now? So I love, Nora, sort of your point on it is, we all own our own path and journey here.
Yeah.
And I think that is sometimes really misunderstood as well, that there's some sense that the firm tells you if you can progress and what you do. No, you own your own development. And to your point, it's a mutual sort of discussion we continually have. Am I happy in my role? Do I feel like I'm really maximizing my strengths? Am I growing? Or, have I sort of reached the peak of where I can go in this role? Then I better look for something else to do. And oftentimes, I think we're talking a lot about our client-facing roles, but I will say in our internal roles as well, that's very true. That, we have discussions with our team members all the time about, are you thriving? Are you growing? If you're not, let's talk about what else you could do. Sometimes it's a sideways step. Sometimes it's, a step into another function. And so I often encourage people to really stop thinking about the review process or your performance evaluations as you are receiving this, grade. And instead, this is fuel for me to figure out where I want to go. And we say it all the time. We are beyond privileged to have such smart, interesting, curious people work here and apply to work here. And I think really shifting that mindset to say, you have gifts and talents. Maybe this is the place to apply those gifts and talents, and maybe it isn't. And that's okay. And so I think that's really flipping that script has been very helpful, I think, in my own career to be a little bit less nervous about this whole review process.
And a few more things about the review process that come to mind. The other thing that's kind of cool about working at McKinsey in many of our roles in the CSP, the consulting side, you actually don't have a boss. So you will have what we call a DGL, a development group leader. Think of it as like a mentor or an academic advisor who helps you seek out the right opportunities for growth and helps you process all the feedback together. So that person is kind of your Sherpa through reviews, but you're going to be doing, you know, a series of projects and project-based work with different groups of people. By the way, sometimes those are great fits. Sometimes you're like, I'd like to learn from someone else, to the point of putting the feedback to the side, right? But those at review time, you'll get a lot of sources of information into your review. You will get the perspectives from those people you've worked with. You'll get some written feedback at the, you know, about each project and the skills that you're working on for that project. For our management and above, you'll also get upward feedback, which is a very, very important part of our review. And then all of that will be kind of put together against this kind of, you know, career progression and role development model of the set of skills that you're working on. So it's really holistic, a lot of different sources. The other thing that we are, I think, on a journey on, but I'm feeling good about our progress, is trying to make sure that we're removing any unconscious bias from that entire process. I mean, I described with a little bit of humor that piece of feedback I got about, you know, being my stature, right? Which, you know, not ideal, right? What we'd ask for there is, what effect does that have? Right. So, you know, Nora, you could be more authoritative when you're tight, right? As opposed to, so we're really having all of us look out for coded language, for bias language, to make sure that that's, you know, not, we're not resorting to stereotypes or bias in our review process.
And that's something that you as a chair, right? That's also part of your role as a chair of such
Absolutely.
reviews.
Yeah, something we really keep an eye on, and including in the written feedback, and then also in the deliberations in the room, we have a bias observer, someone playing that role, who can at any time say, time out, let's rephrase that. Let's talk about that differently. Let's look at it differently.
Yeah. So we talked about feedback, we've talked about apprenticeship, we've talked a bit about our high performance culture and how the review process works. We always like to do a bit of myth busting as well as part of our Unpacked. So I don't know, Nora, if you're ready for a little bit of myth busting, and
let's do it.
Can answer some questions in a very, rapid true or false way. So first question, true or false? Having a feedback culture means being sharp-elbowed.
False. I hope that's come through in the conversation. In fact, I would say, you know, getting feedback and giving feedback is the most caring thing we can do. It shows our commitment to one another and our commitment to help one another grow. So it's quite the opposite of sharp-elbowed behavior. And again, that's the way we hope you'll view it, and we hope you'll kind of, you know, should you come here, that's what you'd seek from us, is that feedback. It's not at all about competition or taking other people down.
I love that. All right, true or false about apprenticeship? You only get to apprentice people when you become, you know, old and seasoned in your career, like the three of us. Is true or false?
Also, absolutely false.
Okay.
We are all givers and receivers of feedback and apprenticeship pretty much from day one. It's amazing around here how quickly you find you have something to offer. And you see that in a team setting, you see it in your office and your practice setting. You know, you will, and you may be bringing something that you have to offer from your work before or what you've done before. And so that's another encouragement that I always give to those who are newer. You can, you know, bring that perspective, worldview, experience, bring the fresh questions.
Love that.
You know, and absolutely, as I said, I got the feedback early on, share, engage, and if you're not, then you're not being a great team member. So we hope, you are seeking out opportunities to be an apprentice as soon as you can. I mean, the other,
It's
it's
part
a
of our
little
values,
bit
right? Obligation to engage. One of our core
obligation.
values.
Exactly. And I mean, the world's changing, technology's changing. And I mean, I seek out apprenticeship an awful lot from the team
So
members
true.
who are
So true.
newer to the firm.
That's right.
All right. Last one of the true or false. True or false, a high performance culture like McKinsey isn't for everyone.
This one is true.
True.
And I hope you've kind of gathered from the spirit of our conversation that we believe in this, we stand by it, you know, we feel that, and the three of us, you know, have been here and benefited from it. But it is, for some people, you know,
Not the right choice.
uncomfortable, challenging, and really not a great fit. And that's okay also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agreed. I hate when these conversations end because I feel like we'd love to learn from you, Nora, all the time, but we do have to wrap up, and our final section is, as we mentioned, snack for the road. And this is where we leave people with a tip or a piece of advice. I think you've given some great advice along the way today, Nora, but if you had to sort of sum up, what is the best piece of advice you could give to everyone who's joined us, regardless of where their path takes them in their career, to really embrace the power of feedback and apprenticeship?
It's to get out of your own way, get out of your own head. We are kind of our own worst enemy with this. And if you're sitting there ruminating and processing, oh, does this mean, you know, I'm doomed in a downward spiral, then you're missing the point and you're missing the opportunity. So just relax, you know, trust in your strengths, trust that things are being given with care, and put it to the side, get out of your own way, and keep growing.
Do you have advice, Blair? Do you have one? Maybe we do a turn.
I'm just sitting here thinking I'm going to take that advice, Nora, because I do find it's true. I think I've built the muscle quite well to receive feedback over my 20-year career. That doesn't stress me out. I think I still struggle sometimes to give upward feedback, or, you know, to really dissent in a helpful way with, you know, how a senior peer is managing something. So I really love this idea of getting out of my own way on that as well.
Yeah.
Just this thought about, hey, this is not a big deal. We all benefit from this gift, that feedback. So I am giving a gift to someone, even if it's a person that it's hard to do.
Yeah.
So I love that advice. My piece of advice would be to really shift your mindset on this, to really open yourself up to see feedback as something that is fuel to help you grow. And
that was my advice too. No, you.
Oh shoot, was that it? Okay, now I gotta think of another piece of advice.
Oh shoot. I was going to say exactly the same. I do think for me personally, it was that shift in mindset to view it really as a gift, as somebody's taking time outside of their busy day to help me grow and develop. And really, and sometimes it's hard, right? But to try to leave but I didn't mean it like that, or like trying to argue against it and trying to convince the other person that they're seeing it in the wrong way, leaving that at the door and really fully embracing it as a gift. That would have also been my piece of advice. But thinking about something else, maybe it's also the upward feedback that a lot of our senior people will say they don't get feedback enough and they really miss it. So taking that effort and also helping our leaders continue to grow, I think is also like, don't be shy and, ask if it's the right moment. Don't assume. I mean, maybe that's another advice. You need to make sure the other person is in the right state to receive feedback. So
I do
don't
think
just
that's a really
barge
important.
in with something you have to share, but say, hey, I have some observations, would now be a good time to share that, or should we have a conversation at a different moment? Because then you just have a more fruitful conversation. And that holds true then for leaders and for peers and for people that might be
such good advice. And
I
people
agree.
are very different on this. Some
Yes.
people want it real time in front of other people is no
Exactly.
big deal, super direct. Other people are like, really want it to be private at a certain
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
really great advice,
Yeah.
Marie.
I agree, especially if you think about it as you are giving a gift to someone else. Think about how they would receive that gift. That's the whole
Yeah.
point is empathy. I think empathy is something that plays a huge role in feedback, which is understanding how what the gift you are giving is going to be received. So I love that tip that, you have a better chance of creating that connection with someone and having the true good intent come through if you are thoughtful about how they best receive
Yeah.
feedback.
Yeah. Well, Nora, thank you so much for joining us, and
Thank
thank
Yay,
you.
Nora, will you
everybody
come
for
back?
tuning
Will you
in.
come again?
Of
Exactly.
course, I'd love to.
Okay.
Yes, I'd
And in the
absolutely love
spirit
to.
of feedback today, so please continue to share your feedback on
Yes.
this series of conversations if they are helpful and what would make them even more useful. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon at a future session.
Thanks again for
Thank
joining us,
you.
Nora. Okay,
Thanks,
see you all.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.